Morning. It is, like I was sharing earlier, a cold, wintry day here in Minnesota. It's right now warmed up to -3, so we're happy to be here. I'm traveling this week because I attended my nephew's wedding, and it was just a really fun occasion. And I decided this to broadcast from my sister's location. So, welcome to the IQI Academy for Leadership Fundamentals. We have several more people registered, but I have not heard from many other people yet. So we'll see who participates today or later. And we're going to continue progressing with us because we've got a lot of good work to do. It'll give you an opportunity to have more personal interaction with me. Let me go through some of the things that we're going to talk about. One of the first things we want to share, of course, is we're here to learn, to have fun, and to make a difference. And you'll find that you may not know this, but every single one of Dr. Deming's 4-day seminars, he started with that purpose and aim. And we bring that to the IQI Academy as well. I think one of the things that we notice is that we have a lot of different topics to be covering. You will recognize our topic selection from your readings, and you'll have opportunities to be sharing those topics and more in-depth conversations with people through your Teach to Learn conversations. So today we begin with our System of Profound Knowledge overview unit. We'll discuss the 14 points. In fact, today we introduce the 14 points to you, and we kick off activity with our project. So it's a good thing that you've been identifying a project to work with. Don't worry if you think that maybe I selected the wrong project as you get into it. Almost everyone changes some type of aspect of their project focus or even their project selection during the academy. So work on what you've selected so far, and then we'll continue on learning, because that's one of the aspects of figuring out, well, what is it I really should be improving here? And how do I become a leader in developing improved processes, improved relationships, improved interactions? I'm going to walk through a few things that we kind of, housekeeping for the Academy. We have a variety of things. This this is a slightly older slide. These sections you'll see actually in our learning management system now. So instead of receiving daily emails, I should have one of those cross out symbols that says we're not doing daily emails anymore. We're using the daily learning management system. But these things are available to you as you log in and activate your account. I guess what I should ask you to do, though, is prior to our session, go through and review what's out there. And we'll walk through as when we talk about either in our office hours later today or another time how what those sections are. Every day, this is one of the final slides that we have in our units, and in fact, it's the first section in each of our units online. Is that we have good morning, Eric. We have a beginning slide and an ending slide that says here's the work for today, and then here's the things that we covered and what we have as assignments. So if you notice, we have this wrap-up slide includes assignments for the day. It is useful. You'll find it's very beneficial if you make sure that you schedule appointments for this work. If it's not on your calendar, you find that it doesn't happen. So I think that's a useful practice to make sure as we look at what we have to do, schedule time. You'll want to schedule time right now for all your Teach to Learn conversations. Every day you'll have a Teach to Learn conversation. You'll be finding different people through your organization. I request that you ask for each particular unit, 7 different people to have a conversation with. So you can repeat a person you share with during one unit. So unit 1, you can have 7 people. Unit 2, you could repeat all 7, but you want to have 7 different people for each unit that you have a Teach to Learn conversation for. Any questions? This is just a place to go if you want to look at, well, what's the high level of what we're turning in for this particular day. Okay. Now we have basic ground rules we want to cover. Our first one is respect other people's time. So our ground rule is we show up on time, prepared, and we speak concisely. The next one is we honor our commitments. We don't miss deadlines. And if we're going to miss it, if we're going to miss a deadline, we're in communication about it before we miss the deadline. So we just want to be responsible around our commitments and our time. No excuse zone. If you're going to miss a commitment, you don't have to explain why. You just say, I'm going to miss that, and here's what I'm going to do to make up for it, or to make sure I catch up. Some version of that. And then please have patience with each other, with the people around you as you're trying to do your work. We want to make sure that we also listen carefully, so we avoid seeming rushed, those kind of things. So we just want to, don't force people to be rushing, but like give them time to be in communication as we talk throughout the course. Sometimes somebody's sharing something interesting and useful, and we may not realize it if we're thinking about what's on to the next thing that we want to be dealing with. Danny, I can see you've logged in, but I can't see your face here. Maybe if you can get your camera going, that would be helpful and beneficial. We don't want to engage in gossip. We want to keep negative observations to ourselves. Thanks, Danny. So there's two forms of communication that actually forward progress when you're doing improvement. It's requests and promises. And if you look at it in that perspective, almost everything else is gossip. So when we're talking about, we can say, I'm promising to do this, or I have a request for you. Would you please do this? There are actually 3 appropriate responses to any request that people make. And so even the request that I make of you, there's 3 appropriate responses. 1 is, yes, I'll take that on. 2 is decline, to say no. And the 3rd is to repromise. I won't do that, but I will do this. So those are 3 appropriate responses to any request. And that's communication in life in general. But if we're trying to forward work in our improvement projects, those are certainly aspects of communication we want to be aware of. We don't want to, certainly, we want to avoid anything else that occurs like gossip and doesn't forward what we're working on. We also want to make sure we help others shine. Everybody's doing their best. We can count on that. And so as people do their best, we want to give them support, appreciation, praise. Don't want to try and make them feel less than. Certainly acknowledge people's efforts. No cement heads. I learned from one of my trainers from Shingijutsu Corporation when we were doing events within our facilities, our manufacturing facilities across United Technologies. What that means is we want to keep an open mind. Some of our first responses could be, how many ways could that apply, rather than I don't get it, or that doesn't apply, or that doesn't apply to me, and how might we test that? So there are versions of things as we're learning. Is just you want to give concepts and new information an opportunity to settle in and not reject things out of hand. And then, of course, we're all fish in water. We kind of don't know what we don't know. The story was that fish don't know they're in water. Older fish swimming by 2 younger fish. Older fish asks the younger fish, hey, how's the water today? And then he keeps swimming on. And the younger fish says to the other one, what's water? Like they don't know, because that's what you're living in. So essentially, in our organizational world, certainly in some of our management approaches, that's what we're living in. We're living in water, and we don't realize that that's what we're in. And so as you've been reading in Deming's book, The New Economics, it's intended to help us see the water that we're swimming in. So that's one of the perspectives. It's there to bring us an outside perspective. So tell me what you hear in these ground rules. How are we doing on this?
Keep muting Joe and I because our cat is really loud, our office cat, and also our office neighbors today for some reason are really loud. But I will comment on which is unusual. But again, we need to honor our commitments better, and we recognize that we, have kind of not really dedicated the amount of time to the pre-work that is necessary, and we have a plan between the two of us to fix that today. So I apologize that our input might be a little bit less today, and our goal for tomorrow would be that it would be more significant.
Oh, thank you for that. Yep. People approach their the pre-work differently all the time. So, and it's one of those things where sometimes you don't realize that, oh, this may be something I should be asking Eric about. My request is anytime you have some kind of question, please try and be in communication, even if there's a hesitation, like I'm not sure I want to do that. So Danny, what did you hear in these communications? I mean, in these ground rules?
I really enjoyed the no cement heads
Mm-hmm.
and helping others shine. A lot of times people can get stuck in their ways and not even realize that they're
Yes.
trapped in their streamlined way of thinking, and they do
Mm-hmm.
become rather close to outside opinions and outside, I don't know, something out of their norm that they're not accustomed to.
Yes.
So those are both really, really important to apply, I think, not even in work, but possibly in everyday life.
I got it. Thanks. Eric, what did you hear?
For me, it's just help others shine and don't engage in gossip. I deal with a lot of that in this building where I'm at, and it's something we've been working to get turned around within our department. So it'll carry out to the other departments. Tell my staff, lead the way. You set the example. You be the bigger person. You take charge of it.
That's great. All right, good. Heidi, what did you hear?
Yeah, I would definitely say that about me too. I thought to help others shine, and like getting back to the basics of how
Mm-hmm.
we treat people, even as we pass them throughout the hall,
I
really
got
can
it.
make a big difference in their day.
I got it. Megan.
There we go. Definitely help others shine. And I think it's also important to not engage in the gossip. I think it's kind of easy to get twisted in with that. Um, so, yeah.
Okay, thanks. This is good. Now, around this, I want to just have you think about this. When I participate in the academy, I will arrive to all sessions and complete all coursework on time. So I'd like you to just take a minute, find your chat button if you can on your interface with the Zoom interface. Should be a chat button, and just respond yes or no. I will arrive at all sessions on time and I'll complete all coursework on time. I guess Denise, you're going to respond for you and Joe. I guess and if you have different responses, you can certainly have send in two. Like. Okay, well, you wrapped up, but there's one more that has the same type of request on here. When I make a choice to not keep a previous commitment, I will communicate my choice before I miss the commitment. So we're just asking everyone just take on being a responsible adult in our communications, our commitments. That's all. All right, there's one more thing I'd like you to share. In the chat, please introduce yourself with your first and last name, your office location, your organizational role, and your selected project.
Eric, what if I'm bouncing between like 2 or 3 different project ideas still, trying to figure out which would be the best?
Have you run through your project selection scoring sheet?
That's what I'm trying to do with a couple of my teach to learn people that assist me in the department as well.
Okay. Well, just say I haven't selected it yet.
Okay.
And then work on making that selection, because one of the assignments for today is to actually respond to one question about what you're going to do next on your selected project. So see if you can get that selection wrapped up today, and then you can answer the homework question.
At this point, it's probably going to be similar to Marquette's with housekeeping workflows.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. So thanks for letting me know that. All right, I'm going to move on. So this is our typical opening slide. Here's the things that we've completed so far. So the my learning activities portion just says this was the stuff we did between the last time we met and today. So for us, it's just we've completed our pre-work checklist, which is really a lot of stuff. You know, we opened that up in November, and because there's a lot of work involved and engaged in that. The middle section that says, here's today's teaching concept. This is the topic that I would like you to use for your teach to learn conversation. Every day you'll have some version of a topic. And this is the 14 points. We're going to cover that. In fact, you'll see a video about it. And then these are the things that we want to be doing it's pretty much on the court. We want to schedule it, but pretty much it's an on the court conversation. These are stuff we're going to be doing to apply it. So teaching to learn is certainly a way of application, and then project work this week. And we already mentioned identifying 7 to 10 different people that you'll be talking to throughout the rest of this unit. Now I'm going to run through some of these background slides quickly because I want to also get to the 14 points. Dr. Deming at one time identified 7 deadly diseases of management, and as he talked about these are things that you may or may not recognize in your organization. The first one he mentioned was lack of constancy of purpose, emphasis on short-term profits. Sometimes it's emphasis on visible numbers that show up here. What can we measure and what can we achieve in those short-term versus long-term goals? I'm guessing with some of your work, you guys might have more of a long-term perspective than a lot of organizations do. So you may not suffer from this one. Evaluation or performance, merit rating, or annual reviews. We'll learn more about why that's a deadly disease. The mobility of management. Whenever we see managers move in and out of organizations, it can cause issues. Again, I've noticed that some people in MCMCFC have fairly good longevity in some of their roles. You know, you may or may not experience all these deadly diseases. And then, of course, management by use of visible figures alone, we run into that quite often. Excessive medical costs and excessive costs of liability, the things the lawyers do for us, sort of thing. So these are things that Dr. Deming talked about as deadly diseases of management. And when he was asked towards the end of his life how he wished to be remembered, in the U.S., Dr. Deming replied, I probably won't even be remembered, although there's a lot of people that do remember him. Well, maybe as someone who spent his life trying to keep America from committing suicide, which is fascinating, because one of the concepts we have is, for organizational life, survival is not mandatory. When we look at how organizations in the U.S. function, the average age of our organizations is shrinking. The new businesses exit their business life rather rapidly. Half of them by the end of the 5 years are gone. And there's a lot of organizations that have a real tough time getting past the first couple years. We may not know it, but the impact of the COVID crisis, still continues to ripple across. In 2022, we had over 500 to 1,500 closures per day, and we're still seeing the effects of that throughout the economy. One of the interesting things about organizational life is we do have a fiscal responsibility to keep the lights on. We need to make sound financial decisions, but we also, not every management approach believes this, we should be dealing with the individual, the humanity, the joy in work, producing happiness, and providing for emotional well-being. Balancing those two things is a real challenge. And there's not many approaches to leadership and management that balance those things as well as the way that Dr. Deming's approach does. So you'll see that and learn that as we go through. Now, this is frequently what we hear. What we really need is a long-term quick fix. Like, we got to do this right away, but it's got to last. So we face the challenge of the desire for immediate results. When Dr. Deming proposed the name, he said the aim here for any organization is for everybody to gain. Stockholders, employees, suppliers, customers, community, the environment over the long term. So his approach is a win-win approach. You've been exposed to now through your reading, the 4 areas of the system of profound knowledge. And we're going to continue working on those throughout a high-level introduction during this first unit, and then each unit in the future of the Academy dives into each area of profound knowledge much more deeply. Today, we're going to talk about Dr. Deming's 14 points. There's a worksheet that I sent you that deals with the 14 points. I'll be asking you to take a note about each point and then select 3 of the 14 points that you think most appropriately apply to your project. So Dr. Deming wrote the 14 points for management in industry, education, and government follow naturally as an application of the system of profound knowledge for the transformation from the present style of Western management to one of optimization. So when we talk about the present style of Western management, it's the one that's having an impact on our organizations, having survivability, the existence of the deadly diseases. Those types of things are part of what he talks about when he talks about the present style. So what I'd like you to do is record one insight or one idea for each point as we watch through this. This is a relatively old video, but it explains the 14 points. This handout with the 14 points and the system of profound knowledge is one of the handout items that I emailed to you. I also emailed a biography, a timeline of Deming's life. This is just FYI kind of information. There's no test on it or tracking it or anything. But this is what the worksheet looks like if you're looking for what worksheet, where's the worksheet. So my request is that you identify at least 3 of the 14 points that could most impact your project. And Eric, you just have to take a rough guess at that at the moment. You could certainly update it when you turn it in. So when you submit your worksheet, it'll look something like this. For the points that you decide apply, you're going to answer all 3 columns. What's the meaning of this point to me? How might it apply to my project? And how could I explain its relevance to of this point to someone else? For the other ones that you're not picking all you're doing is taking a note on what you understood about that point as we watch the video. Again, the 3 that look appropriate to your project and the others just notes regarding each of the 14 points. Okay. Questions on completing this? If you don't have access to the form or can't pull it up right now, just make a note by number and then track the ideas that you get, and then you could fill in the form after we complete the session. Any questions? I'm going to start a video here, and so I just want to make sure we're covered off on this. We're okay? All right. And then I'm going to pause it just briefly to see if you're hearing the sound that comes out. We're just to have a little introductory kind of noise background, and then I'll play the rest of it. Hang on a second. It decided it wanted to play in the other screen, so let's see if we can move it. Sorry for this. There we go. Now can you see, this is Dr. Deming leaving the plane.
W. Edwards Deming changed our world.
Can you hear that? W. Edwards Deming changed our world? Yes? Okay. All right, here we go.
Until his death in December 1993, he worked as a revolutionary, insisting that we change, that we do everything better. People who may never have heard his name owe, or soon will owe, their improved health care, education, consumer product satisfaction, even government, to Deming's ability to ask apparently simple questions.
What business are we in? What business ought we be in? Is anybody here not putting forth his best efforts? Has the system of reward in Ford made it difficult in the past for people to work together? What will we be doing a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What would you mean by improvement? What do you mean by a good job?
The object of those simple questions, asked at his seminars, in his books and video cassettes, was to force people to think differently, to break out of traditional patterns. He had started doing that in the summer of 1950, when the Japanese asked his help to rebuild a war-shattered economy. American industry didn't need any help then. With mass production, American goods flooded the world.
We were doing so well. This country made notable contribution to the world, mass production.
By the early 1980s, cars and consumer goods from Japan were flooding back into the United States. The quality method Deming had taught the Japanese after the war now produced not just a lot, but a lot that was better and cost less.
The problem now is not mass production. The problem is quality.
Dr. Deming's teaching is best understood through his 14 points, which he developed in the late 1970s. When used together, they represent a philosophy of life.
The 14 points all have one aim: make it possible for people to work with joy. How can they work with joy if the company has no conscience of purpose, has no purpose in life? How could anyone enjoy his work? Wouldn't know what he was doing. The first point is create constancy of purpose for the improvement of product and service.
I think it's extraordinarily important for us to have an overall strategic plan, a vision, if you will, a general understanding of who and what do we want to do in this country. What are our national interests? What do we believe in? What do we want for our children and our grandchildren? Where would we like to be in 100 years?
The idea is to have a long-term aim, something that everyone in the organization knows and understands. You have to answer the questions. What are we doing? Why are we doing it?
Second point is to learn the new philosophy. Teach it to employees, to customers, to suppliers. Put it into practice, in other words. The new philosophy, which is one of cooperation, win-win, everybody wins.
Cooperation to everyone's benefit is a key point in Dr. Deming's philosophy. One of his favorite illustrations of that new philosophy is two service stations in his neighborhood that compete and simultaneously cooperate. He called one of them when his automobile wouldn't start.
Man came to take care of that automobile in a truck of his competitor across the street. Now they're smart. Instead of both of them owning two trucks, borrow each other's on emergency. They still compete on their gasolines and service. Third point is cease dependence on mass inspection. It's much better to improve the process in the first place so that you don't produce so many defective items or none at all.
It takes the same time, material, and effort to lay a bad egg as a good one. The only difference is you can't sell the bad one.
Fourth point is end the practice of awarding business on the basis of price tag alone. Instead, minimize total cost in the long run. That means one has to predict the cost of use of any product or service.
Overall costs includes a whole lot of things, including the life cycle costs of something. That means everything from the purchase of it through the maintenance phase.
The idea is to buy from a single supplier, always working with that supplier to increase his quality and decrease his cost so that he can help you do the same. Again, it's a win-win situation.
The fifth point is to improve constantly every process for planning, production, service, whatever the activity is.
It was continuous improvement that allowed the Japanese to create an advantage over the American industry. Never-ending improvement.
All inventions exist because someone believed something could be done better. You must accept that nothing is ever good enough.
Sixth is institute training for skills. The people learn in different ways, and training must take account of those differences.
People are the only ones that can create change. People with more knowledge and them growing are the only ones that can create continuous improvement.
Even those people with an apparent innate ability to do something well can be trained to do it better. Juggling for improvement, you might say.
Seventh is adopt and institute principles for the management of people. I'm referring to management of people for recognition of different abilities, capabilities, aspirations. One cannot delegate quality. The president of a company may delegate quality to his plant managers. That's not a way to get quality. That's a road to failure.
What is required is leadership, not supervision, leadership. Quality and ethics exist in those organizations where everyone is in tune and the most senior person will accept nothing less.
Point 8 is to drive out fear, build trust. It's purely a matter of management.
To lead a company focused on improvement requires a whole different sets of values and attitudes and relationships than leading an organization based on control.
The idea of strict control is directly opposite what Dr. Deming teaches, which is cooperation throughout the company at every level by people who have concern and respect for each other.
Ninth is break down barriers between staff areas. In other words, build a system. Build a system within your own organization for win-win. Everybody win. This means cooperation. It means abolishment of competition.
Remember that everything is a system, and the system must be organized for the best possible performance, not by one part of the system or by one person, but by them all. The idea is not competition, but contribution. Every part of the system, every person in it, will win if the system wins.
Point 10 is eliminate slogans, exhortations, targets, asking for zero defects, new levels of productivity. Nonsense. You don't need a method. Why weren't you doing it last year? Only one possible answer, you were goofing off.
Think of it this way. If a snappy slogan actually accomplished anything, advertising copywriters would rule the world.
Eleven is eliminate numerical goals, numerical quotas for anybody. A numerical goal or quota accomplishes nothing.
Of the 14 points, this is perhaps the easiest to understand if you will remember the Fats Waller classic, "Tain't what you do, it's the way that you do it." Or in Dr. Deming's words, by what method?
In my class at New York University, Christine, Dr. Deming, I work for an airline, information and reservations. My job is to give satisfaction to the caller and to make 25 calls per hour. Christine, said I, what is your job? You don't know what your job is. Is it to give satisfaction to the caller, or is it to make 25 calls per hour? Christine, you can do either one, but not both, except by coincidence, I would not expect. She said, I know it, that's why I bring it up. I don't have a job, I don't know what it is. Which is it, make 25 calls per hour, or to give satisfaction to the caller? Which is it? She doesn't know. Need we manage that way? Why not improve? That will not bring improvement. She cut people off to make her 25 calls per hour. Twelfth point is remove barriers that rob people of joy in their work. This will mean abolish the annual rating or merit system, which ranks people, creates competition, conflict.
What gives me the right to tell you that you're in the lower 25%? Does that make you feel good? Does that make you think you're going to do better in the future? I think probably it just makes you feel bad and you'd want to do something else.
I do not grade my students. How can I know how somebody will do 10 years from now under economic, financial, psychological conditions that nobody can foretell? Nobody would dare to foretell.
You cannot enjoy what you do if you are doing it only to beat someone else. If you cannot find joy in doing the job itself, you cannot contribute to a quality organization.
Point 13 is institute a vigorous program of education and self-improvement.
Training, of course, tells you how, and education tells you why. And that's a subtle thing, but it's important.
Don't confuse training, point 6, with education, point 13. Education should not be about your job, but about something else. Sometimes, no matter how well you hold up your end, you have to think of other things in other ways.
And 14, the last point is accomplish the transformation. Let us continue to study the new philosophy. Develop a critical mass in your organization that will bring about the transformation.
You have to get everybody committed and everybody using their knowledge together, as opposed to just a few people telling people what to do. And so I believe that, and plus I'm not smart enough to be able to have all the answers. I can't go back.
Those who teach the Deming method argue that it does most to integrate work and people, that it is a complete philosophy. Dr. Deming's method is based on what he called profound knowledge, most of which is theoretical. Theory of a system, of education, of variation, and psychology. The good news is you don't have to be an expert, you only have to be aware of them. But in a nation of people impatient to get everything done quickly, his method takes time, a lot of time.
I thought we could really institute things quickly, that it would just be a matter of months before we could change policies and change attitudes. Not so. It takes years.
I would say the quality improvement process is not difficult to accept. I would say it's something very new. It's a new way of thinking.
Will swing, tain't what you do, it's the play.
All right. That was a lot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to absorb there. I'm gonna move quickly through the end because we're getting close to our time, and I'm gonna. Oops, sorry. We're gonna be able to stick around. I'm gonna stick around following our session right now, if you want to talk about what's next, especially about the learning management system, or we can schedule office hours for a time that works for you. There's some point that I want to give some advice around, and that's from previous Academy graduates. You can have an easy approach to your Academy experience or a hard approach. And one of the most frequent conversations I had was schedule your Academy work with appointments on your calendar. So take this on, do this morning before you head off to the rest of your day. As we wrap up, schedule appointments, identify 7 to 10 people that you'll be doing your Teach to Learn conversations with. Complete your Teach to Learn conversation today about the 14 points. And then I'm going to ask you with the worksheet that was sent to you to identify one move to improve. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm just saying, what's the move that you selected from your 3 basic question list that you want to try out with your project? So I'm not asking you to try it out yet. I'm just saying, which one are we doing? And then we'll be actually implementing one move per week as we go forward. Our Teach to Learn conversation will be the 14 points, and then identify a move to improve, and then turn in your 14 points worksheet. Going forward, I'll be talking to you about how to do mind mapping, where we address the theory of knowledge. And we have theory of knowledge quotes from each session. There's 2 of them. This is one of the most profound, and as I find as I teach the Academy, one of the most helpful If you truly want to understand something, try to change it. You could switch this around, and my version of this quote is, if I want to truly understand myself, I should try and change something. It's amazing what you run up against and all the stuff that you have, what you learn, and when you're trying to make improvement. And then, of course, being on the court produces learning experiences, while remaining in the stands creates onlookers. So the real course of the IQI Academy, it doesn't occur during our 45 minutes in the morning. It occurs with what you do afterwards. So if you get on the court, that's where your learning will really start to show up and occur. And then, of course, the real purpose of the System for Profound Knowledge is producing a transformation in how we manage people, how we work together, and in our organizations.